Alright, welcome to Greg's Reel Revival. Happy July 4th. Happy 250th anniversary of the US of A. So for today we're going to do some maintenance or some service on a classic. This is Lew's Speed Spool model BB-1. This is a really old reel. You can see here it's actually made by Shimano. Lew's contracted Shimano to make their early reels, so this is one of those. So let's get into it and see what we got here. First thing we're going to do is start off by taking this nut retainer off, and we'll just lay things out in the order that they come off and put them back together just the opposite manner. Alright, that was easy enough. Now we'll take off handle nut. Then we're going to take off this right here to be able to take the handle off. Let's see if I've got the right screwdriver for that. There we go. There, handle comes off. Here's a tension washer that goes between the handle and the star drag. Then we just spin the star drag backwards, and that will get that taken off. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're just going to take these three, or undo these three thumb screws, and that will allow us to take off this side of the reel. Alright, so there it is. That's what's inside here. Alright, so all the gears and everything are in there. So what we have to do to get to there is we need to take off those two, take out those two screws. So we're going to give that in just a minute. Let's take the rest of the reel apart. Alright, here's the spool. You can see right there. My dog does not like fireworks, so we might hear that a couple of times during the video. But these are the spool. It's kind of like the cast control, okay? When you cast the reel, these move out against the inside of this ring, and they create a little bit of friction to slow your spool down to help you prevent from back casting. Okay, those are easy to lose, so kind of watch them. And you have the spool, and there's nothing on the other side of the spool, so we'll set that right there. All right, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to service the line guide, but you can see here is the gear that operates the line guide. It's in good shape. So let's take off this side of the reel. There's really not much under here, but I want you to see it because if you're gonna service the line guide, then we'll show you why it's important. Last one off here. The main reason I'm going to do this, like I said, is to show you that if you're going to service the line guide, you'll see this pin's already kind of coming out of here. It goes into that side of the reel right there. It'll fit right in there. And then when you put that screw in, that holds that in there. All right, I'm going to turn on headlight there, so we hope we'll get a little bit better view there. All right, so losing the side badge there. You can actually buy those on eBay. I think they're about 20 or 25 bucks though with shipping and everything. So unless, you know, it's really emotional to you, you don't need to do it. Okay, so here is the bearing. Right there is a big C-clip. All right, we're gonna go ahead and try to take that out. The ones nowadays have like a hexagonal little retainer ring, and they're pretty flexible. This one is not easy to take out. So I'm gonna try it. We're gonna see if we can get somewhere. I may have to go get, I've got a heavier duty pick out there, so I may have to use that. We'll see. I might get that out. Let's see. Yeah, but that's really, really stout. Pull that out. Then you can just reach in there, and that bearing will come out. All right. So that's all that's in that side plate. For that bearing, I will soak that in some Coleman fuel or possibly some acetone, and then we will re-oil that and put that back in. All right. So that's all we have on that side of the reel. Move these up here in the order that they came out. Then we'll get into the what I call the business side of the reel. All right. Okay. So like I said, all the stuff's under here. To get that out, we take these off. So we'll just kind of hold it in my hand. I'm going to hold that back plate against this, but I can also get these screws off. Or what I might do is let's get them started. And then I can put that down there. Take them out the rest of the way. All right, there's one of them. And here's my other one. All right, now what I need to do, if I just push my finger on that reel shaft and I just push down, that top comes right off. Okay, so let's look in this side plate real quick. This is your spool tensioner knob, so you'll see there's got the little copper shim in there, and this kind of acts as a spacer. And then right there you have the bearing. Again, there is not, I don't believe, no, there's not a retainer clip in there. All that is what holds that in. So I just reach in here with this little bearing puller and get that pulled out. All right, so there you have it. There's that. Okay, same thing with that one. We're just gonna soak it in acetone, then we'll get it put back in here and we'll be good to go. All right, let's look at the inside of this reel. This is a little different than what I thought it would be. All right, so we have the main gear here. We have a, if I can get it going here. We have a little plastic spacer on top. Then we have a little washer. Then we have a tension washer. Underneath that we have a spacer, metal spacer. And then this has got a little brass ring right there. I actually think from looking at the schematic that this goes underneath this main gear, but we'll look here before we put it all back together and make sure we get it back together right. All right, either way. So next thing we're to do, we're just gonna lift off this main gear. All right, comes straight off there. Most times on most reels, there's a little brass spacer that goes in there. This does not have one. Okay, so main shaft right here. We pull the main gear off. All right. And we have this top cap here. And we have the drag washer right here. It's kind of hard to see. This drag washer is super, super old. It is functional, so I am not going to take that out. That's probably the only reel you'll ever see me not take that out. Okay, on the back side of the reel, there's nothing back here. Okay, but that side goes down, and the side with the drag washer goes up. Okay. Underneath that, come on thumbs, there is that little spacer right there, and this is what we call your click ratchet. All right, so there is the reel. Here is the anti-reverse. This came off when I was taking off the main gear, so we'll show you how to get that put back on. Next thing, and this is actually kind of like the Ambassador 5500C. This is your pinion yoke. I can just actually pull that right up out of there. This little spring-loaded metal piece holds that pinion gear in there. So I haven't seen that in a Lou Childers reel. So that was kind of interesting to me. Okay, here's what we'll do. We're going to just clean this up with some Q-tips in here. It's already really clean. I know it's clean because I just cleaned this reel. I just wanted to show you a video on the breakdown of everything. So anything a little extra in here, we'll just get that off there. It's already been oiled. You'll notice there's really not a whole lot of extra stuff in here. I don't like to put a whole lot of extra oil and grease in the reels that I service. All right, so that's really clean. And like I said, when I got this, it was caked with old dried grease. And I literally set this down in a little bowl that had some Coleman fuel in it, and I just let it soak for 10 or 15 minutes, and that just ate all that grease away. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of clean the inside of that, all that with the toothpick, let's do Q-tip, and so we're good to go. All right, that is. All right, so we're going to set that aside. Okay, this reel, like I said, is pretty clean. So I'm going to kind of touch up these few things here, and we'll show you how to get it put back together. Give me just a second. All right. I am not going to show how to service the line guide on camera. There's a whole video on my channel dedicated specifically to that. So if you want to learn how to service your line guide system, just go to the channel and type in line guide and it should pop up for you. All right, so let's start with the bearings. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1 or 2 drops of this TSI 321 in here, in each, a couple drops on each bearing. Take my little bearing spinner here, and I'm just going to take them on there and just kind of spin them around there. Get that oil down in them. All right. Same thing with this one. All right. Now let's get those put back where they belong. This one goes in the side plate. So we're just going to set that in there and push it down. If you remember, next thing that we did is we put that in. If I can get it put in there the right way. There we go. And then this is just your little copper spacer. That just goes right in there. And then we're just gonna put this on here. All right. Doesn't have to be super tight. Make sure we get those threads on there are pretty wide, so we shouldn't have a problem. Let's put just a drop of oil in there. Kind of hold that shim down, and then put another drop right there. All right, so got that side plate done. Now, this is our more difficult one, just because, like I said, that C-clip is really stout. There we go. So I just push that down in there. I'm gonna put one side of that C-clip in. Actually, I'm not either. I'm going to put the middle part in there, and then I'm going to see if I can use this screwdriver. Alright. Got that side in, I think. Alright, that wasn't too bad. So I've got that in there. So that side plate's ready to go. Alright, so let's rebuild this reel here, okay? First thing we need to do is get our grease, and we're going to put this pinion gear in. Probably the easiest way to do that is just kind of maybe slide a screwdriver under here, and that'll kind of hold that up for you. And you can just put that right in there, and that'll hold it in there. All right. Now, I did not put any grease on that. Why not? Because I'm going to grease this main gear when I'm putting it on here, and this main gear and that pinion gear mesh with each other, so they're going to share grease. Okay, and I don't want to get too much grease going on there. Okay. First thing we're going to do is put just a couple of drops of foil on this shaft here, or post, and then I'm going to put the main shaft right on top of that. Next thing I'm going to do, this is my pinion gear. It meshes with, there's two little brass teeth, so that goes right in there, and it meshes just like that with your main gear. Okay. So I need to get this down on here, and then you can see that's where that goes. And then you just need to make sure that that shaft, the cutout of that shaft, fits the cutout of that clip washer. Okay. So we have that on. Next thing that goes on is the spacer. It looks kind of like maybe a Teflon, maybe even I would think Teflon because of the age of the reel. But we'll just put a little bit of grease on that. Set that on there. Next thing we're going to do, there's the underside of your main gear. We're going to set that on here. Just press it down. I like to hold my finger on this anti-reverse so it doesn't kick back. Otherwise it'll kick it off that click ratchet and you'll have to take it all apart and do it again. Okay, so we got that on there. Let's get our paintbrush here and put a little bit of grease on it. Alright, like I said, doesn't need a whole lot. Anything extra that we put on here is just going to end up in the inside of this reel. Okay, so we'll just paint a little bit on all around the reel, or all along the main gear, and then done. All right, so when, like I said, when this reel goes back together, that pinion gear is gonna mesh with that main gear, and they're gonna share grease, so we're good to go there. All right, now we need to build the top part of that stack. Looks like we have that copper. Oh, we need this plate to go on top of the drag washer. And then we need that little copper washer there. We need that bottom metal spacer. This is our tension washer. It's kind of curved. Okay. Then there's another flat washer on top of there. And then the last thing we have is a little plastic spacer. Alright, so that's your reel. Okay, you can see, alright, that's what I was talking about. See how that anti-reverse kicked off there? I'm going to have to very carefully take this whole drag stack off and put this back on here. A lot of the reels kind of in the future there have a little post right here that holds that on so it can't kick back like that. But this is a pretty early reel, so. Alright. So again, I'm just gonna put that on there. And then you'll see that fits in that little notch there, and that's what is your anti-reverse. Okay, so we're gonna put this right on there, and then just make sure that goes right there. And so we're good to go. All right, let's get this top on it so we don't have to deal with that any longer. All right. There we go. Looks like that closed really nicely. We'll get our two larger screws. Put grease on the tip of that screwdriver to help kind of hold that screw. Kind of just to make it easier to hold. They're small screws and sometimes they're hard to get along with. All right, so we have, let's put on this side of the reel, the back side of the reel. Okay. Let's start with this one here because it's going to go into that post there and hold that in. And then we'll get that out of the way and it'll be secure. Then we can just work our way around. All right. This is where all the vintage part dealers get me. If this was my reel, I would have to go on eBay and buy that emblem there. But it's not. So, it's amazing how many parts are out there for these reels. I did call looking for a couple. I just wasn't able to find them. And that's kind of part of it. You know, if you're going to buy an old reel, kind of make sure you get one that's functioned properly and clean it all up. It'll be fine. But your concern might be if you do need parts, you're either going to have to buy an extra reel to just use for parts, and maybe you can find one that's, you know, maybe beat up cosmetically that people aren't asking a whole lot of money for, and you know, you can use that for parts. Or sometimes, you know, you'll find this, the random parts on eBay. Alright. Well, I guess we're trying the grease trick again here, because apparently I'm not going to be able to get hold of this screw. Goodness gracious. Alright, there we go. Alright, I'm going to, alright, see my two little pieces are there. I've cleaned that little bar there and I put a drop of oil on it so those slide freely each way. I'm going to put one drop of oil right there. That's going to ride in that bearing down there. On the other side. So I want a little bit of lubrication in there, not a whole lot. Alright. Now I need to make sure those are in, alright, all the way in. Now what I will do, I'm going to take a Q-tip here, get me a little bit of oil on it. And I just dropped something. I heard it hit the floor and I'm not sure what it is. So I'm going to get a little bit of oil on it and I'm going to go around the inside of here. Okay? That'll provide a little bit of lubrication so it's not squealing. And then all we got to do is put this side back on. So again, I'll put a drop of oil on that side also. Make sure those are in. Put that post in the main. Put inside the pinion gear. And then I think, yeah, we're good to go. So that clicks on there. You saw me just rotate this shaft a little bit. It wasn't quite square, but when I rotated that shaft just a little bit, it helped everything mesh. Alrighty. Alright, so we've got that going on. Everything looks good. Let's start putting the rest of it on here. Alright, we're just going to put the star drag on. This should go on really easily, like it should spin on. So let's see how easy that's spinning. You're pretty sure you got it on the right way if it spins that easy. Okay, just take your time, don't cross thread it. When that gets down to that point, it's sometimes kind of hard to screw the rest of the way on there. You can just put that handle on there. And, well, I'm going to try to show it to you, and it's not going to work for me how I want it to. Put that handle on there, and that'll give you more leverage on holding that, and then you can just move that star drag on down. Okay. Alright, so that's quite a ways on down in there. So between the star drag and the handle is that little tension washer. Put our handle on here. We've got this little screw here that goes in there to hold the handle on. That's good. Next thing we have is the cap. Screw that on there. See if we can get that lined up there. go a little tiny bit further. All right. Same trick. All right. I think that's it. All right, see, we've got reels really nicely. It's got really good anti-reverse. Click it, clicks right back in. There's pretty good free spool for an older reel. So that's it, folks. So if you've noticed, look at some of the other reel channels, and this reel's kind of built like the Ambassadors mostly, but this is a really solid reel. You know, you could easily fish this. I don't know how much I would, simply because there's really not parts available for it, but this is a great vintage fishing reel. So appreciate you tuning in. If you want to kind of stay up to date on the art of reel maintenance, reel servicing, reel repair, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'll hit the notification bell, then that will tell you when I have a new video out. I've been trying to be better about making videos a little bit more often. And then give me a like if you like the content. So I appreciate y'all subscribing, or I'm sorry, I appreciate y'all watching. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great July 4th, and we will see you soon. Thank you.